Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Truth Table. I'm Paul Everton, and this is episode 1 of season 2, which I didn't expect to begin till January, but here we are. I have a lot of very amazing guests coming in the future already lined up. Today's guest is a good friend, Jeff Loucks, and he's been digging in and investigating human rights, for a decade now. But we're going to talk about the Constitution, human rights, Section 8, the J Treaty. We're going to cover a lot, actually. I don't know if anybody noticed, but we had an awful lot of rain, and it's oh, what the stop that. We've had an awful lot of rain, and but nevertheless, the Truth Table is back, and I want to thank all the people who have been a part of season 2 happening again. I wasn't able to do it on my own, so it was necessary. If there was a need for the truth, then I'm here for that. It's worth sacrificing. But I'm not Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci said he's the science, but I'm not the truth. I'm seeking the truth. That's my mission. That's the mission of the show, is to show, the actual articles and data and prove what I'm saying, instead of just basing what I'm saying on emotion or, how I feel. Because, that we're in a position now in Canada where the government, no matter which side, are just imposing and continuously, perpetually trying to infringe on our rights, our bodily autonomy. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But I did want to mention, quite a victory with Randy Hillier, October 7th. Major victory for freedom was achieved when the Ontario Court of Appeal ruled that the Ontario Conservative government in 2021 stay-at-home orders violated Canadian charter rights to peaceful assembly. So it doesn't matter if it's a liberal or a conservative. You're seeing it everywhere. The NDP in Vancouver right now. So we've got a problem with all these media-supported, poll-supporting parties. They're all complicit in this mission to make things worse for us, while sending billions of dollars into other countries to support things that we don't support, like DEI and transgender surgeries. I mean, all these things are not things that we want our money spent on, including and especially wars. But I wasn't expecting this show to start till January at least, but here I am. And, I'm very grateful. And, I had to cancel my hot stone massage today. And in order to do the show, you know too much when you know too much. That's when you find the secrets under every stone. And my guest tonight is not only a really good friend, but we are going to talk about Section 28 of the Canadian Charter of Rights. And he's was very excited to talk and to share his, his report, his investigative report. And I'd like to thank you for joining us today. And, you can share an archive. You can help on Patreon. You can buy a T-shirt, all these things. But we're going to talk to Jeff right after this. Thank you for joining me today, Jeff. Welcome to the Truth Table, your first time on the show, and we've got important topics to talk about when it comes to human rights. And I'll let you start off wherever you like, and
Okay.
we'll get things rolling.
All right. Well, thank you for that introduction, Paul. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come. I really chose to come on the Truth Table because I think there is a connection here that my talk is going to really cover. I'll be talking about human rights defense. I'll be talking about parts of our Constitution and parts of other laws that have made sort of North America unique in the pursuit of human rights globally. That we are not better, but we have stories that are really instructive for the rest of the world. And some of this talk tonight will be about how we can make change in what is an era of conflict. We all sense it. We face existential threats. There is a war going on in Ukraine. There is uh, conflict in the Gaza Strip. There is conflict in our own nations, and this inability for us to be able to listen to the possible solutions, to lead with empathy. And so, really, what I'll be talking about tonight is how we shift from the path that we've been on to a path of empathetic leadership where we can hear what others have to say. And Paul, your message coming in, you were saying that you're here to listen. You're not speaking the truth, you're here to listen. That's the fundamental message of a human rights defender. That's the fundamental path of an empathetic leader. It's to listen and then to make decisions on how to act best. So this talk is going to cover, the last 10 years of human rights research that I've done in the Niagara region of Canada, but also how it applies to global events. And there are some fundamental conclusions that will come out in my human rights investigative report that will really fundamentally have an impact globally. And so we'll cover that as well. So there's a lot to cover. It's probably going to take about 2 hours next. So I hope people settle in and we can jump in right now. Before I get started, though, one thing I do want to say is that a lot of people will be mentioned in this podcast. There will be sort of revelations of how a hate movement has snuck into the Western societies and sort of taken over our governance and led us to not be able to listen to the other side of the argument. So we'll cover that. There will be, different groups. There will be criticism of the Democratic Party of the United States, of the Liberal Party of Canada, and it is not the intention to villainize anyone in this podcast. What I say is about finding a way for us to heal what is broken in our society today. And the reason we find ourselves at so much criticism. You will think that maybe I am being partisan in criticizing these parties specifically. But I think what we have to learn is that sometimes what human rights research does is it uncovers where we pursue equal rights and where we go too far and we promote some supremacies. So when supremacies are promoted, it imbalances the rights and it creates massive conflict. And so, Paul, maybe you have the preamble of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that we could go to and start off with that. I know this is something we're going to talk about later. So let's just give Paul a second here to pull that up.
Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I'm pretty sure I have that here somewhere.
Yeah, you did. Sorry about that. I should have given you a heads up on how I was going to start off. Well, let's just start off this way. Since you've brought this up, we can come back to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights later. But what this is let's start off and go back in time. Because really the North American people have had this sort of special mission. Okay, let's go here. That's great. If you can just bring up the preamble, scroll down a bit. Yeah, you had it there for a second. So in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, one of the things the preamble covers is that if we don't respect people's fundamental human rights, we will find periods of great travesty. Now, this document was written right after the Second World War, and it was said to have been written by Eleanor Roosevelt and edited by member states around the world before being ratified. This document sets out, can you scroll down just a little bit here, Paul? Can you go down? Yes, to the preamble. Okay, so in this preamble, what it says is, whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family are the foundation of freedom and justice, when we disregard them and show contempt for them, it results in barbarous acts. And what we're seeing today is the barbarous acts at play around the world. But also, what we're maybe hiding or not understanding is the acts of corruption that happen within our governments in Western societies, because we have fundamentally failed to listen to the rights of certain groups. And we'll certainly talk about how that imbalance has affected us now, but also historically. And it will lead to some sort of statements that will need to fix and have empathy for the people who have gotten out of balance when they've, in fact, advocated for certain rights, but gone too far and promoted a supremacy. And so, with that, maybe we can go back to the historical context. And one of the reasons why I chose Paul to sort of host this talk and do this preview of the report is because Paul and I are both descendants of the people of origin of North America. And so what I'm covering here is the fact that my family arrived in North America in 1709, and they arrived as indentured servants, in other words, white slaves. They arrived from the Palatine region of Holland as Huguenot refugees who had left the massacres and persecution of Protestants in France. This deep, fundamental value of freedom of religion forms part of our Constitution, and the Constitution that we have in the United States, but also in the Universal Declaration of Rights. So my family story is very intertwined with how these rights were crafted and the blood and lives of people who were sacrificed in order to make sure that we had these human rights. But when my family arrived here, they had to pay off their passage as indentured slaves, indentured servants, and they had to work in a camp called West Camp and another camp called East Camp, where they were made to do forced labor as lumberjacks, cutting down wood to create the foundations of what would be North America. And these conditions were very extreme. Often no provisions, often no pay, no way to feed families. And many of my family members died under those conditions. Before they left, they ran away and they fell in shelter with the people of the First Nations, and they found friendship with the people of the First Nations. And it was those conditions that led to the American Revolution some 90 years later, 70 years later, sorry. So Paul is also a member of the people of origin. He's a descendant of the Micmac Indians. And Paul, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your family history.
Yeah, Micmac origins, original Canadian in Quebec side. So they were speaking French there, and one thing led to another, and here I am.
So,
But I also have some Irish and French mix, so I would be considered Métis because of the interjection of these different. But I mean, as an Irish descendant of Ireland, have that European mix, and as Irish, we're like the first slaves. so, so I've been suffering the whole time, and like no matter which direction you look, there's suffering. But I guess that gives me clarity and understanding. It's easier to put yourself in the other person's shoes if you have that experience. But I don't consider myself a victim. I consider myself fortunate to have suffered.
and I think that's true. What we have to understand is that we are all products of our experience. And when we go through adversity, we do wrong. We look to the empathy of others to help us understand how to move forward together. And so that is kind of the fundamental moral message of what the people of origin suffered through together, found friendship, found support, fought for rights, like they did in the American Civil War, where my family on both sides fought against terrorists of the British Crown. That's what the American Revolution was all about. It was about the Boston Tea Party, the fact that they objected to high tariffs because high tariffs were reducing their ability to survive. And so the American Revolution, which founded the people of origin of North America, was actually my family and Paul's family that had lived in these conditions together and found friendship. And so while there was a peace that was negotiated at the end of the American Revolution, what is a constitutional document to our peoples, the people of origin, the First Nations, the descendants, the religious, the people seeking religious freedom, the people who had endured slavery in order to become citizens of this land. There is a constitutional document that was agreed upon between the newly formed US government and the King of England. And that document is known as the Jay Treaty, but its formal name is the Treaty of Amity. Maybe we can bring that up, Paul, the whole thing, because it's a bit of a mouthful. But amity meaning friendship, commerce meaning free trade, and navigation meaning the right to travel across each other's lands. And so this treaty, it has a number of different articles, but essentially what it has is a commitment between two nations. Now, it came about, and this is where my law background, and I'm approaching this from a legal academic perspective, where we sort of describe as in the legal system what's called an amicus brief, which is a friend of the court. So I'm, as an academic, approaching this from an academic perspective, and describing these things and how we found our fundamental rights. So what we have here in the Treaty of Amity was this agreement between the US and the King of England, but it was signed by what is called a plenipotentiary, which is a unique title given to people who can bind their countries. And this agreement bound the countries of the United Kingdom and the citizens of the United Kingdom in America and the US government through these plenipotentiaries, which is another mouthful. But what it means is that the Senate and the President agreed to give this person, whose last name is J, that's the reason why we call it the J Treaty. His first name was John. He had the full authority to bind the nation. And so when that agreement was signed and it was ratified by the US, newly formed US government, by its Congress and by its Senate, and also by the House of Commons in London and the House of Lords in England. And that became a binding constitutional document for the people of origin. In other words, the people of Paul's mixed heritage, but also, the first people, the First Nations, and my people, the people who came here as indentured servants, as slaves, and were forced to do labor. So that binding agreement that we shall cohabitate on this North American continent and do trade freely and be good friends is unique in the world, because that constitutional document of the North American people was done through friendship. It was done through agreement. It wasn't completed by acts of war. It was done in an act of peace with the idea of creating lasting peace. And as we see such great conflict right now in our time, this document informs how we move forward. And so while this seems quite critical of President Trump's policies, it also informs us of why certain things have happened where we just can't listen to the other side. And so we need to get to the core of why is it that we have gotten to this place where our friendship has been broken? And why is it that we are not listening to each other? And so what I will also reveal is not the history of our people, but also how we got to the present time. And that has been the story of my human rights investigation over the last decade. And so I'll tell you about how I got involved in doing this investigation. My own personal experience, I've been involved in politics and sort of taking care of my local community for the better part of 30 years. And I never really understood my family history and how that might have informed my will to take on those actions. But I've been a big part of the Niagara region of Canada's big stories over the last number of years. And before we dive into the heavier topic, what I'd like to do is talk about the fact that we've had some really big successes recently in human rights defense. And so I'll talk about that first, and then I'll dive into the heavier topics. So recently, the Ontario government decided to remove automated speed enforcement cameras and red light cameras from the province. And that was all as a result of advocates such as myself, in which I played a big part by doing a presentation to the Niagara region. It was a well-researched presentation about how we could promote road safety without the use of automated speed cameras, and what the legal problems are with using those cameras. And so it was kind of two sides. First of all, it's illegal to corrupt our judiciary and our legal system by using these cameras. And I can get into the legal arguments of that a little bit so you understand. But the other part is there's a road safety motivation to using these, or at least it's been described that way. But was it actually true? Was it actually producing results that made our roads safer? Was it modifying speed? Yes, we can all agree. But modifying speed doesn't necessarily mean safer. In fact, our safest roads are our 4-lane highways. And that's where we drive the fastest. That's where we have the most miles traveled with the least fatalities and injuries. It's really on our municipal roads where we have issues of poor design that lead to higher injuries and higher fatalities per mile. And so when we think about that, what do we do? Do we lower the speed or do we change the road design? And so my argument was always change the road design. Roundabouts were one example, there are others. But the idea here is, okay, if they're not actually producing any safety benefits, then there's no legitimate reason to have them. And so what is the reason? And what we found is that by taking away human rights, in other words, rights to a fair trial and rights to be innocent until proven guilty, they could monetize that and turn it into a cash system where they could raise revenue. Now, all of that could have been justified potentially if there was road safety coming out of it, but there wasn't. And so fundamentally, the argument was presented to the Niagara region and it got to the province that there was a problem here. We're taking away fundamental rights and we're not getting road safety. So the Ontario government, facing this massive legal liability where people could sue because their legal rights had been taken away, chose to refocus on the road safety benefits that would happen. This is what happens when people listen and investigate and speak about what human rights can do. It's a very instructive thing about how it can have a very positive effect on a community and how it can reorient money to be more efficient in achieving the true goals, which in this case is road safety. And so what the Ontario government is doing now is a direct result of the work of human rights defenders like myself, who took an academic approach and tried to explain both sides of the issue. And so rather than talking to people like, it's all about speed, you're just a bunch of speeders, why can't you just drive safely? What it really was about is that people were driving safely, that the speeds were appropriate, and in fact, they weren't producing any safety benefits. So in order to reduce accidents that cause fatalities and injuries, what you have to do is improve road design, and that's what the Ontario government is now doing. And the other side of the issue was the legal liability of turning our judiciary and our legal profession into a cash revenue system for the government. And that is something that our people revolted against, not only in North America, but also in Europe. And that's the story of Charles I. There's quite a lot of stories back then but we won't go into it. But there is a history of human rights development, and the fundamental charter of rights that we see in the Canadian Constitution now was earned with the blood of our families, the families of origin. The one that you see in the American Bill of Rights, also with the blood of our families and the struggles of our families to abolish slavery and to have freedom of religion and freedom of expression and the ability to advocate on behalf of the rights of your family. So this is sort of an expose on how human rights defenders can be successful, how they can be empathetically motivated, and how they can understand and listen for both sides of an argument and make sure that we have sort of the informed view that comes not from conflict like we see in our legal system, where it's all adversarial back and forth. It comes from this concept of an amicus brief, where a judge looked at evidence from experts in the industry, what's actually going on. So that's the approach that I use as a human rights defender. I always look to find where the truth is and to pursue that truth so that I can inform people like we inform people on the truth table.
Indeed.
So, Paul, great job. All right, so that's the later one. What we've got now is how do we fix what we're in with the American position on Canada, but also the problems that have occurred within America itself. And that's fundamentally where human rights defense can go wrong. That's where we find that the pursuit of equal rights is righteous, but the pursuit of supremacist rights is wrong, and it destabilizes nations, and it can destabilize the world. And so tonight I'm going to announce that I've uncovered a hate movement that has influenced the world. It's been the most popular one that we've ever seen in the history of people. And that hate movement was started in part with bad will and in part with goodwill. And it's when those two mix, right? And supremacy is formed that people can't listen because they believe they are supreme and they have the inherent right to speak on behalf of all issues, or at least the vast majority of issues. What it does to our legal system is it reverses the onus of proof. When people who are oppressed by a supremacy go to court, they are shut out. They are not heard. They are forced into a position of guilty until proven innocent, instead of the fundamental right of innocent until proven guilty. And so when we look at how our system was forged and the suffering of our humanity in order to get to a place where we have all these rights, we have to look at how they become unstabilized. And we have to look at who was acting in bad faith and who was acting in good faith but went wrong because they were forced together with a common message about sharing the rights of a specific group. And so when I talk about the hate movement that swept the world and it's gotten to the highest levels of human rights defense, it's gotten to the UN own office of the Rapporteur on Human Rights, and it's been infected by this hate movement. And so it's not for me to want to vilify. We are here to heal. We are here to clarify what's going on, to talk about it, and to restore communication between parties that's healthy and goal-oriented and can create good public policy for us all to live in a well-balanced world where no one's rights are supreme over another. And so I'll be talking about that a little more, but I think it's instructive to sort of reflect on some of the events that have happened over the last decade that have informed what I'm about to say. And so before I say that, I want to say that Ontario has some of the best lawmakers on the planet. The Ontario government has received a global recognition of how good our laws are and how they were forged often through agreement after the great conflicts of the human race. And so, like the Jay Treaty, the Ontario government has a history of finding good laws that are built well and has written into our laws systems that protect us from corruption and the corruption of justice itself. But what we've found is, or I've found, is that this hate movement that has tried to instill a supremacy has shifted the balance of the Ontario judiciary. And what we've seen is the Ontario courts making rulings that don't follow the laws the way they were written to protect human rights, to protect the equality of people. And because of that imbalance, what we've found is that people who are trying to access their rights are shut out. They're alienated. And so what's going on in our society is really the alienation of people, the alienation by our media, the alienation by our judiciary, the alienation by our political parties. And those political parties that have been the champions of this hate movement have been the Democratic Party and the Liberal Party. Two parties that 10 plus years ago I was a lifelong supporter of. And what happened to people like Bernie Sanders and what happened to people like Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. is what we have seen become a hate movement that swept the world. Now, that wasn't the origin of it. It actually started back in the 60s with a movement that could have come from Soviet Russia. We don't know. But it's not the movement. It's not related to the Russian government as it currently stands, which is a fundamentally different organization than Soviet Russia was. And when one of the things that we uncover as human rights investigators, where we try to pull the strings together of all these different events, is that we uncover that spycraft and tradecraft from bygone eras can have very consequential effects for a government after regime change years later. And the war in Russia and Ukraine right now is fundamentally caused, potentially, I don't have the proof, but potentially from tradecraft and spycraft in the 1960s and 70s. And what I'm going to get to is a very specific incident in a woman by the name of Susan Rosenberg, who was arrested for terrorist acts. She was a founding member of what I'm going to describe now, perhaps for the first time, the female supremacist movement, in which she sought to bring vulnerable communities under her control and to exercise her unique right to speak for the human rights movement and to protect Black, underprivileged people. This was fundamentally a misguided human rights defender movement, which resulted in people being murdered through bombings, federal employees during the 70s. And at her trial, she was found to have over 700 pounds of explosives in her possession. And that led to her getting a life sentence. This woman then was pardoned by a president, President Bill Clinton. And her involvement in the democratic movement subsequently, a known terrorist person who had kicked off the female supremacy movement and overtaken what was meant to be a movement to promote equality that started long before her, with women's suffrage and the right to be heard as a woman and the right to have a voice as a woman, a fundamentally moral mission that everyone should have empathy for. But what happened with Susan Rosenberg was the start of the female supremacist movement, where women uniquely see themselves as the only people with rights to talk about fundamental human rights issues. And this movement has taken over our governments. It has affected our municipalities. It has affected our social services. It has affected our ministers and ministries of justice or departments of justice. It has fundamentally altered the way our judiciary treats equality in fact rather than in law. Because the laws do specify that we should treat people equally.
Yeah.
But our judges make case law which state exactly the opposite. In this way, our judiciary has gone rogue. It has decided that the laws do not apply and that they can redefine them, that they can interpret them in such a way that promotes a supremacy or gives privilege to the legal profession and the judiciary, where they give each other professional courtesies in response to people who are advocating on their fundamental human rights, thereby denying those people any access to justice.
Mm-hmm.
And people have become intimidated to even use the criminal justice system or the civil justice system or to challenge the corruption of government, because they have to face these powerful people. And in the face of that, it takes incredible courage, because you have to accept, as Charlie Kirk did, that people will kill you for speaking for your rights. You have to accept that you have to have the courage that we saw in the people of origin who fought against slavery, who fought against religious persecution, who escaped both and formed in the North American continent. And that is why Ontario has such great lawmakers. It's because they built our system to be listened to, for the rule of law to be followed by the judiciary. And where there are exceptions, and those exceptions promote human rights, the judiciary should further clarify. But where they take away human rights, the judiciary is not empowered to do so. And so fundamentally, what I've uncovered actually through my own personal attempts to access government services, through my own participation in the family court system, and my own interactions with lawyers who confidentially have told me they are frustrated. They can't promote equality. They can't advocate on behalf of men. They can't do so because to do so would make them look like they are part of the problem that is described by the supremacist movement, the female supremacist movement. They have been silenced. And so there is this kind of complicit perversion of our justice system that's going on. So just this past week, in another round of obstruction of access to the family court system, a year ago, I challenged the fees that my lawyer billed me. They billed me $20,000 to try and get more access to my kids. And they put it on a retainer, and they burned through it without ever once trying to get more access to my kids. In fact, what they did is they recommended to me a strategy where I reduced my court-ordered access to my kids and then abandoned me after billing through my fees. Now, this is in front of the courts. I'm going through the assessment office. The assessment office should have a slam dunk case because the lawyers refused to follow the law at any time that mandates, or their code of conduct, that mandates that they have to give estimates and seek guidance before spending money, that they have to validate their agreements with the assessment officer before taking any money out of a trust account, that they have to inform their clients of their right to have an assessment. Steadfastly, my lawyers have refused to comply with any of those laws. And now it's in front of a judge. And it was in front of an assessment officer where the assessment officer flat out refused his mandate to assess the bills based on the facts presented to him. And so now I'm in appeal. So yet another layer. This is how they do what is called parental alienation. They simply deny you any access to your legal rights at any time. And so now what I presented academically, and I use my own case to instruct, not to condemn, so that we can fix some of these injustices that have started in our system and that are corrupting it from its moral purpose. Because what's happened here is now I've identified a conflict of interest between the legal profession and the judiciary, and them both working together to protect each other while running rogue from the laws of our province, which is a province that has written great laws to protect us. But we have this female supremacist movement that's taken over globally and has, through the promotion, the fundamental belief in all of us that we women should be equal, has now created this supremacist view that women alone have the right to be innocent until proven guilty, that women alone have the right to speak about core issues like the issues of family, that women alone have the right to speak about the fundamental issues of procreation of our race, of our people, our race, the humans. They have asserted such female supremacist statements as my body, my right. In other words, men don't get to participate in the fundamental decisions of procreation. And while I have always been an advocate of women's rights, and I have always been an advocate that if women should choose that it's not the right time to have a child, that they have the right to make that choice. But we all know there are moral limits to that, and no one agrees that a full-term baby should be aborted minutes before birth. And so the fundamental conversation needs to have the entire human family, men and women, participate in the conversation about procreation, and that no supremacist movement should ever deny the rights. But fundamentally, where this affects our societies is that certain parties in the pursuit of female votes have adopted female supremacist views, not equality-based views, but female supremacist views. And those have led those parties to not listen to the other side, because to listen is to defy the supremacy. And so they instead use the supremacy to tell others that they are inferior, that they don't have a right to speak, that they are immoral. They cast aspersions such as racism, such as sexism. They make accusations of sexual impropriety. And we have seen this happen in the major cases in the United States, in Canada, and we've seen it happen in Western nations predominantly. And so while there is a fundamentally valuable pursuit of equality for women globally, especially countries outside the West, there is a movement within the West to have female supremacy take over everything. And they have tried to take over our governments, our government agencies, our municipalities, our businesses, and they have done so with the aid of alliances that they alone claim to be the best defenders of those people's rights. But as Susan Rosenberg showed us in the 70s, that when she kicked off this female supremacist movement, that she was using those allies to legitimize her own desire to be considered a supreme person, a person who could be the only advocate of rights, who had the only voice. And so what tragically happened when Bill Clinton pardoned her is that she re-entered the democratic institutions. And while she became a silent partner, what happened in Ontario as the pursuit of equal rights took hold in 2010s, is we saw leaders rise, leaders that I believed in, that I voted for, leaders like Kathleen Wynne. And while Kathleen Wynne was not a female supremacist, her actions were. Her omnibus bill that removed fathers from all Ontario laws and defined mothers only by their genetic components and gave them more rights.
Yeah.
Taking away rights from fathers. This well-intentioned bill went wrong. And when mixed with the female supremacist movement started in the States and what was going on in the female supremacist movement within the Democratic Party, when those two parties mixed, and let me tell you, the Democratic Party and the Liberal Party are pretty close in the province of Ontario, is it kicked off a legislative female supremacist movement that changed the composition of all our government agencies and all of our businesses. And we became enraptured in what has been DEI, what has been the need to fly the pride flag in a way that silences religious minorities, men, in a way that silences people. And as allies of the uh, the LGBTQ equality movement, which is a valid movement, and people of the LGBTQ community are a vulnerable community. But as Susan Rosenberg showed when she adopted the message of the Black people, is that she was using it to assert her own supremacist views. And it's the same thing with the female supremacist movement to this day, and its use of these vulnerable communities to justify their own supremacist views. And so when I say this, I like to refer to a paper that was submitted against parental alienation. In fact, supremacist movement within our governments to promote female rights to the exclusion of men's ability to be considered innocent until proven guilty. So what we have now is a situation where at the highest level of the United Nations human rights defense, a paper that was written on parental alienation that denies that it exists, that denies that our systems have been corrupted by female supremacy, that in its very wording simply denies that men can speak the truth about human rights, because they are abusers, they are sexual molesters, they are all these things, which is in the idea of hate movements. It's the use of profiles based on statistical minorities of a group that are used to cast aspersions against the entire group. And the truth is that men and women together have the most productive families, that the vast majority of men are not abusive. They're good fathers, and this has been known for centuries. In fact, our society is not a patriarchal society, or at least it wasn't. It was a society of cooperation between men and women to raise children. It was about reproducing the human race. And that's what the division of powers in families historically was. Because when you're working in indentured servitude to feed your family, you're not going to put the woman on the axe that cuts down the tree. You're going to put the strong man who's going to work that dirty, heavy, dangerous job, and who is going to work those long hours, 12 hours a day, just to feed his family. That is a society that protects its women. Those are the fundamental values of our people. And so the idea that men have always been abusing women, quite the opposite. It has been men who have been working in collaboration with the mothers of their children to raise a family and give life to future generations that might speak on behalf of the rights of all people. And so as we today listen to this story, we have to understand the fundamental imbalance of the female supremacist movement. And now I'd like to move on and talk about the problems of maintaining female supremacy in our society. Because female supremacy has meant that the liberal parties of Western society have not been able to listen to the Russian people and find solutions to their problems. And it means that our policies to end the war with the Ukraine have been problematic because they've been influenced by this female supremacist domination of the conversations, where people cannot recognize the legitimate arguments of others because they believe fundamentally only they are the source of truth. And therefore, anything else that the other party says is evil and has no good intent, and that all they should ever do is suspect the other side of being evil. This is the imbalance of promoting the supremacies.
Yep.
And so that is the fundamental problem that we face. But I also want to think about the problems within the United States, because I've spoken about Canada and I've spoken about Europe and global conflict. We could apply the same principles to the conflict in the Gaza Strip, but we also have to look at the very contemporary issues that the United States has faced through COVID and how its leadership role has fundamentally struck a balance between human rights and the need to silence of a supremacist movement, because science was not listened to during COVID. Scientific opinions were not listened to. There was a need for the science to be right with the Democratic Party in order to be heard. And that supremacist movement silenced the truth. It silenced the rights of people. It portrayed them as MAGA rather than American citizens fighting for their rights. And that silencing caused the strife that America feels today. In the 2016 election, Bernie Sanders was silenced by the female supremacist movement. They made sure that they worked behind the scenes to ensure that their delegates and their superdelegates all lined up behind Hillary Clinton, even though Bernie Sanders was by far the most popular candidate in that election. And that disenfranchisement with the Democratic Party wasn't the first time for Bernie Sanders. This is a man who's seen the corruption within the party for years, who has advocated against it, who has supported their moral value, but who has been an independent. And so while he ran for leadership of the Democratic Party, the reason he was seen pouting in presidential what do you call it again when they become the president? Some of those ceremonies, sorry, slipping my mind. In any event, he was really dissatisfied with the fact that he had been sort of corruptly treated. And we saw that repeat itself during this last election, where Kamala Harris conspired with Tim Walz to make sure that she was the only candidate, and under the agreement that he would be the vice president. And so democracy was again thwarted. And so what we see are these people who believe that they can do no wrong, that they are the supremely chosen people, that they have the supreme right to speak, and that when they corrupt their own internal systems, that message is the one that we see and hear. And so fundamentally, when agencies think about how they act in the US government, they get the message that corruption works, that collusion works, that female supremacy works, and they change their agencies in that way. But there's a number of other incidents as a human rights investigator that I've noted. The attacks and corruption of the US justice system, President Trump, and the intention to defraud justice by denying him a legitimate chance to be elected, by raising a series of trumped up charges that he's had to defend, hundreds and thousands of them. A man who,
men are flexible. Oh, sorry. No, men have always been flexible to find remedy, to make a car, to make good roads, to what I mean. Like, this is our natural divinity. Our purpose. We love to make things better. We want to see we want to create a renaissance. And the fact is, our purpose is life-giving. The egg dies every 30 days. It's a vehicle. It is the mother's role is to bring your life, the men's life, to term. That's like an incubator, an incubation of life. But it's us that have the life from father to son, and we, just like the royal bloodline needs to be from father to son, that's the way it works, and we don't have that anymore. So that has been stolen too, and that's why we have a woke king right now. But this initial purpose, we all have purpose with purpose, and we want to love and respect and honor their purpose. We are the ones that create life. Men create life, and that has been stolen from us.
I agree with you, Paul, in that men and women have a purpose in life that is to keep the human race going. This is a problem with the female supremacist movement, in that it's an extinctionist movement, because it chooses to define women not as mothers, but as others. And that has also led to a troubling problem that we face with population crash, as our birth rates reduce. Now, does that mean we should only see women as mothers? Absolutely not. Women are amazing contributors to our society, and the contributions they have given us are amazing.
Yeah, to us as men, they give so much to us, but we require so little. We're so easy to please. All we want is peace. That's
well,
it.
I don't know about that.
We want
human is easy to please.
We want to utilize our talents to make life better for our fellow man, whether it's man or woman. Like, we all have a destiny. We all have, God inherent gifts, and some to build, some to think. Like yourself, you are trying to undo something horrible that's happened to our fellow man, and that's all based in love. This show is based in love and faith. I have strong faith. Yep.
And again, the idea is not to vilify, but to fix and to heal as a society. And so as we see these voices who have gone wrong and who have had good purpose in mind, what we find is that the imbalance has caused all kinds of problems for our society, right? And driven us to a point where we can't have reasonable conversations. So, that gets back to the foundation of why there needs to be change, why I believe the Democratic Party should be disbanded, and that it should find its new moral purpose. This has happened through history. We've seen parties come and go. And I also believe the Liberal Party of Canada should be disbanded, and that a new party should be formed in its place. The Liberal Party of Canada, I was referring to, and the NDP Party of Canada, because of its alliances that it's had with the Liberal Party through these times where they've brought forward laws. So, as it relates to what would be the constitutional norm for establishing that men and women are equal, it's actually a part of the Canadian Constitution in Section 28. And it says that, I'll read it actually, don't stop moving, please. Notwithstanding anything in this charter, so in other words, having more power than anything in the charter, and not inviolable, so it can't be changed by any part of the charter. So notwithstanding anything in this charter, the rights and freedoms referred to it are guaranteed equally to female or male and female persons. And so my apologies for the few errors I made in reading it there, but the idea is that men and women are equal under the law. They are equal under our charter, and no law can change that, not even the notwithstanding clause that we have in Section 1, where rights are often taken away for good governance. This right cannot be taken away. This is the highest part of the Canadian Constitution of 1982. So men have an equal right to access to the law. In our judiciary, they have an equal right to access to our judicial systems, our social services systems, our municipal governments. They all have a right to speak and to be included, and to be included in groups like DEI groups, because men have rights too. And to exclude them is to create a supremacy. Now, the argument is that men have been leading a patriarchal society and excluding women from access. And to the extent that that's true, it may have come from the origins of the fact that it wasn't easy for women to get access to political or government services or commerce because they were at home with the family. And it was easier for men to travel. They were stronger, they were more capable, they had to endure the weather, they had to go negotiate. And so the fact that men had more access to those rights was really a matter of survival. It was hard to live and survive as an indentured servant in 1709. It was hard to live for everyone in the family, and child mortality and female mortality and male mortality, they were all very high. It was hard, and the roles that were chosen were aligned with our natural abilities. And it was successful. It got us to have future generations where we can now enjoy the freedoms of their labor, the work that created the luxuries of time, that allowed more people to participate more freely in society. This evolution is not men mistreating women. This evolution is the work of all people created the infrastructure and advanced our societies in Western nations. It created the opportunity for more people to have access to rights. And as it did, it gave those rights to those people. Sure, people had to fight for them. Human rights defenders, women who sought equality rights. And my respect goes out to them. Fantastic women in Canada and the United States that led the world in giving women more access to rights. And that is part of our human rights story as the North American people, the people of origin, who understood through their own blood and sweat.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a whole bunch of statements. Paul, I don't, your opinions may vary That's why we're here on Earth, is we all have
Yeah.
different opinions.
Yeah.
But I wanted to inform people on
Yep.
what my human rights report will conclude. And I think it's fundamentally a issue that nations need to take into consideration, that all governors in the US, that all premiers in provinces of Canada, and in fact, this message needs to go to all Western nations in the United Nations, that we need to recalibrate and focus on equality and stop promoting supremacies that destabilize our ability to listen to each other empathetically. And so that will be my human rights report. And I'm happy to have discussions with anyone like you, Paul, at any other podcast where you want to have more discussions. Just a little bit about me and what makes me a little bit unique. My background, I studied to be a mediator in 1999 and have practiced mediation on and off through the past 26 years. I just completed a Master's of Law degree from a university in the United Kingdom that focuses on transnational corporate governance and sort of the ethics of doing business across international lines. It has to deal with conflict resolution. It had to deal with legal system design. It had to do with the ethics of corporations and the duties of care of the leaders of those corporations. And on top of that, I've described how I'm a part of the families, the people of origin of North America, have a unique family story that I've learned more about recently by talking with my father about it. But fundamentally, I'm also a person who has a lot of experience in business and technology, and I'm highly certified and regarded in the industry that I work in, where we install business systems for governments and businesses around the world, including Canada, the United States, and a number of organizations in Europe, such as the European Medicines Agency. So all of this information informs the work that I do as a human rights defender, and it's helped me pull these many different bits of history together in order to find a resolution that ultimately has the aim of helping the world heal.
Yeah, I think our missions are kind of aligned. The same purposes, our fellow man, thinking about our fellow man, our natural purpose. Healing is so important. And, but also bringing to attention, these treaties and these things are important to understand. When, someone coughs, you don't get to, have a stay indoor policy, where complete violation of rights, which we've all seen it happen. We see these bills they're trying to push forward just to try to continually breach. It's like a constant, perpetual obsession to violate rights.
Well, you're right, Paul, and that the Freedom Convoy and the actions of the Ontario government and its inability to listen. This is really where the federal Liberal Party and Justin Trudeau broke human rights law, and in legal terms, there's a prima facie case that he should be tried for human rights crimes, for the things he did, such as seizing bank accounts, such as having the police charge into a crowd mounted on horses. That is a Tiananmen-like incident where a person stood up for human rights in front of a tank. Well, those protesters who were standing up for the rights of all Canadians faced the same sort of thing when they faced mounted cavalry. And so that is the kind of thing that led to a problem. But we've also seen how the judicial system has acted in response to people standing up for human rights with the arrest and conviction um, of Chris Barber and oh my goodness, what's why is her
Tamara,
name? Thank you. How could I forget? Right? They're now serving house arrest, which is kind of a moderate thing, but they went through this massive abusive process of a very expensive conviction
Yep.
in order to make the point that, again,
The
female
government
supremacy
demonstrated.
is always right, and justice won't be served under a female supremacist movement.
Yeah, what they've done is they demonstrated what they're willing to do, how far they're willing to go, and
Yeah.
you believe the Liberal Party should be disbanded.
Morally, the way that the Liberal Party has accepted the female supremacist incursion into its ranks,
Mhm.
even if many of them were good, had good intentions, they passed a number of laws which stripped men of rights, which forced men into situations where they could be accused of things that they didn't do and lose their powers over their children.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying powers, but actually the ability to have positive influence on their children.
Parental guidance, guardianship. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, you know, in my own personal life, I have faced many of these types of false accusations, and I have been continuously over the last 10 plus years also had to defend myself against false accusation after false accusation.
Hmm.
It's a hard journey, and most people don't have the capabilities to go out and get a master's degree in law to fight back and to be that unicorn that stands in court and says, what you see here now is corruption between the legal profession and the judiciary because you're trying to take the jurisdiction away from an assessment officer who's meant to assess the fees of a legal professional. So what we're facing now is a unique situation where we can essentially stamp out corruption in the judiciary and the legal profession and stamp out the unjust use of photo radar and the judicial system to make money for the government.
Mhm.
These are the types of things that we need to advocate on behalf of, and that human rights defenders have the ability to do that. And it doesn't take a law degree. What it takes is a country and a citizenship and a willingness in the media to hear both sides. That is why it's a part of every one of our organization's policies to have equal rights, to have free expression of rights, to have human rights broadly, not just for one group that is supreme.
Yeah. The general, like, I've got a comments here, like people are asking how they can help, like if there's anything that they can do to move this forward.
Well, I think the first thing is start talking about it, right? Because the hardest part of tackling the female supremacist movement, this hate movement that's taken over the world,
Mhm.
is that people are afraid to talk about it, that people don't know about it, that they
Yeah,
think
because
you'll be lambasted, or people will think that you're crazy. I've
they're
had
using reverse psychology by accusing.
right,
Hate, you're being hateful.
right.
You know,
So
so
that's
it's horrible and it's everywhere. I've
yeah,
seen it. All the Commonwealth countries are all like under the same thing, and our money is being used to spread it to other countries. It's like as if we want to spread what we've, the thing that we've got. We've got a disease here that needs remedy,
Yeah,
cures,
you
natural
know,
remedies.
well, it's funny because I've got two quotes from some friends that I told about this, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, a lot of women, a lot of men. Universally, women have been very receptive. They've
Yeah.
understood, they've felt the imbalance, they know what's going on, they have empathy. They see it happening to their brothers, their fathers, their uncles, and they see it happening in their own family with women doing it to the fathers of their children.
Yeah.
So they know what's going on. They understand the process. People are fundamentally receptive to this because they've experienced it, they've seen it, and so on. But the thing that I would say is have the courage. I've accepted to put my life at risk. There are very powerful people that have made very strong accusations about here. I have the evidence to back it up, and they might sue me. They might do a Charlie Kirk to me. That's the type of thing that I face when I make these decisions to go against these powerful forces. And, I've accepted that I'm as good as dead anyway if I don't have my rights. So I have to fight for
Jeez.
them.
We're like in the same mind frame. I feel exactly the same. I didn't think I was going to make it to, another
Yeah,
year. And here I am still. I don't know how, but Facebook has completely shut me down. Like I can barely do anything there, which is fine because the more I know, the more the more
that's
how
right.
bad it is.
This is the thing of human rights defenders. They don't have to be as qualified as me to speak up for what's right. So, when people are asking, defend human rights by having conversations with your family and friends, and by having reasonable conversations with those people who might not agree, because ultimately they will. It's going to take time for them to hear the truth. I myself had a journey where I had to wake up to what was going on and to collect the information and to approach it with goodwill, like an academic, and just make sure you understand both sides. Always listen. Um, so, uh,
Really the premise of our show right now is just that it's already on paper. It's already in treaty. It's right
yeah,
in front of us to use.
that's right. If our judges follow the laws and do so in good faith, and do so in such a way that ensures all people, men, women, all races, all religions, just like our charter says, everyone has equal access under the law. And specifically to the communities in the LGBTQ community that we referred to early, they also have equal access to rights in law. And they are vulnerable, and they should not be exploited, and they should not be used by a supremacist movement. So, is there a policy-based discussion about what is the purpose of humanity, and should we reproduce, or should we, organize ourselves in units that don't make reproduction? That is a public policy discussion that all people should participate in good faith, because we have to understand that unless we want an extinctionist movement to lead the human race to extinction, or to lead the Western nations to depopulation so that other nations who don't follow these policies can then just walk into an empty infrastructure, We have to think about this from a public policy perspective, because right now, Canada is 100% reliant for population growth on immigration, and we've seen the problems with that as well. So, we as a multicultural society, not as a white society, a multicultural society, have to think about our reproducing our own population. It is not a one race statement. It is about thinking about how we ensure the Canadian mission for human rights continues. And that same mission that my forefathers suffered through in order to get these rights, we need to populate our countries. And we need to do it as a team, as fathers and mothers together.
I mean, I may miss a few hot stone massages, but procreation is good.
Yes, well, and it comes with a lot of responsibilities for both parties, right? So the turmoil that it causes in lives of men and women, is just not worth it. Our family court system should be disbanded, and we should look at ways to reorganize
and improve it, because we have critical thinking, intelligent people that can do things well. Like, to me, it's all easy. When I joined the Libertarian Party, it was easy for me. Separate the violent from the non-violent in prisons, and reform. Don't just like feed them crap food. You want to like get them the heavy metals out of their system. You want to purify their bodies and heal them, and then treat them as a mental illness. Like, people who are hurting imposing themselves on others should be segregated from society. They don't need to be beaten and executed. They need to be fixed. We have to love what we do to the least of us. We do to ourselves. We do to God. And that's why we have to, that's the thing that we've been doing wrong in the prison system. Instead of giving them, an ability to graduate high school, get them building homes for the homeless and be productive for society, knowing that they're doing good to other people, in their suffering, in their prison. They're actually helping other people. This is good for the soul. There's so many things that we could do so much better. And, equal rights is one of those things that we can do better.
So two things that I want to kind of wrap up with. First, people were asking what they can do to help, and encouraging Paul and buying a T-shirt or giving him a donation. I highly encourage that, because he's given me a forum here to really start from the beginning of the mission of the people of origin, to find and define human rights. And that contribution, Paul, is really significant, and I really want to thank you for the work that you're doing here. And that's why I wanted to encourage you to come back and do a show earlier, right? So that's really good work. And then, along with that, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is legal@bifa.one. So legal@bifa.one. And if you need help, or you want to contribute, or you want to make a donation to the mission of the BIFA, which is a human rights defender organization that I started back in 2020, feel free to do so. But the final thought is this, and this was said, one of my friends, one of my close friends who's gone through this with me over the last 10 years, he's a Muslim man, and he said, human rights defenders should learn from the lesson of the first and best known human rights defenders, and that's the one that our calendar is based on. He said to me, the mission of Jesus Christ was to try and save the rights of humanity, to save their souls. And if Jesus Christ were to appear today, would we listen or would we crucify? Because that is the choice you make when you become a human rights defender. You face the repercussions of nations, of government agencies, of professions who you've called out, and called out the injustice of corruption. And so, we have to open our minds and be willing to either listen to the messages or choose to crucify people. And that's the wrong reaction. That's what a supremacist movement would do, is crucify. So human rights defenders are really important to our society. I have a mission to fundamentally reshape corruption in our government system, and my human rights report is going to be just part of the toolkit of how to force governments to change their corruption. So
That's
I
great.
thought it was pretty interesting that it came from my friend who's a Muslim man. He's been very insightful on many topics, and just a family that I dearly love. They're really great people, and so.
Yeah, well, so are you. I know you are, but what am I?
Well, come on.
I'm gonna rain. Raining now. Look what you did. With all your positive thinking.
All right.
No, this is what we're doing. We all have our purpose. I don't see what I do as important. I'm not okay. Wrong word. I don't see what I do as about me.
Yeah.
Even though I love to I like all my guests, like friends, brothers, sisters. That's what I think about them. I feel a very big connection to them, just like you and I. Just like instant friendship.
What I didn't realize, Paul, is there's a whole bunch of questions in the chat.
There is, yes. There, I said some of them, but we're defenders of truth. Yes, we are. Okay, Beth would like a link. Paul, David, share.
So I think.
Yeah. So my YouTube
on some of that.
will have the link for the show if you want the link for it. Yeah, there's no rush to close out. We can look at the questions. We can have an official. Let's see, what's this say? Thank you for watching. Oh, cool. See, I have a new system right now, so
You're learning all this.
I know we're starting.
If I could say one final thing, at no time in any of what I've said do I deny that some women are abused, that some women and children are abused, and access to justice is important for those people. But the movement that I describe is the movement that hides those legitimate cases by making false accusations.
Yeah. But we are open to questions. And any show, whether you're watching from YouTube, Rumble, or Facebook, I will see your questions, and my guests and I will gladly try to help. In my situation, I'm just giving you my opinion. I could be wrong. I mean, I consider myself, semi-intelligent, but even Billy, Billy wasn't listening. When Jesus was trying to warn him, stop.
Hey, Paul, is there a way that I can respond to the chat, or is that only something you can do?
I think so. You should be able to.
Maybe
if you click on a question
to a presenter,
I went right to the beginning here. Is there a question that you wanted to see?
Well, somebody was saying, can you post a link to BIFA? And so it's It's very simple. It's bifa.one. So bifa.one, bifa.one.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see if there's anyone still watching, or how many people are watching?
8
Eight.
people.
So if you have questions, feel free to ask. Is there a way we can let
Yeah,
people sort of ask live questions?
Yeah, and if you go on the afterwards, the after done, people can still post questions, and you can go on the YouTube channel and answer the questions. Like, I do that all the
Okay.
time. I try to do, I give my information, what I have, where it came from. I mean, we're today we're dealing with actual written charters and treaties. It's all on paper and signed and ratified, and so basically guaranteed rights. But we've seen an abridgment. We've seen an infiltration here, and it doesn't seem to matter who you vote for anymore. And that's really a big problem for me, because I care about my fellow man. And these people are either compromised, or, they're definitely compromised, but they're playing like they're not together, but they are together. That they, like the conservative, like Ford. Ford pretends to be, I mean, he's much better than Kathleen, but still, he's still bad. I mean, he's still, he's giving, illegal immigrants are getting like $3,000 each, while a disabled person is getting $1,400. I mean, that is absolutely insanity. It's like the EBT being cut in the United States. As soon as these people get their money cut, because right now they're getting spoiled, they're getting grapes fed to them and fanned by, you know what I mean? They're being spoiled.
Well, so Paul, I think fundamentally the goal of this is to heal, right? I think there have been some mistakes made by the Ford government, and so I would agree with you, and especially around their handling of the Ambassador Bridge incident. I thought that was really poorly handled. I think what we're seeing, though, is that the Premier of Ontario is trying to address these same issues when they come up, when they're presented properly, when the fix is known, the reason to fix it is known. He's actually acting in good accord, and what gives me that hope is the movement to stop speed cameras, right? Because it was a cash grab, it was immoral, it was a corruption of our justice system, but it fundamentally took away our human rights, our right to a fair trial, a right to be innocent until proven guilty, right? And every one of those tickets was illegitimate. If I had to defend every one of them, I would have won every one of them. So, and in fact, in the only time where I did get a ticket, which was in COVID, and it was a red light camera, I did fight it, and I did win. And essentially, the judge stayed, so it didn't make case law, because had he actually rendered the decision, it would have invalidated the whole system then and there. So, and I didn't even get to the best arguments. I just said they hadn't met their duty to provide proper service and proper disclosure, and that's what he stated on. But the real argument was, how did they know whoever was driving the car wasn't proceeding under an amber light as instructed by the law? Because it is the driver that decides that it's the safest thing to do to keep going through an intersection. And you're not instructed by the law to keep checking the light because you're supposed to be making sure you're doing the safest thing. So you're not instructed to keep looking at the light and stop in the middle of the intersection because the light turned red. You've made the decision, keep going, make sure you're doing the safest possible thing under all circumstances, and that's the law. And so, because they couldn't prove that the driver of the car hadn't proceeded legally under the amber light law, they would never have been able to convict me on that because they didn't even know if I was the driver. They didn't care. So, that's the kind of thing that's made all of those tickets invalid. And no person was given a right to a fair trial because they basically were told, you have no defense. You're guilty just because we took a picture of your car. So, these are the kinds of moral dilemmas that you have to raise as a human rights defender. And, I just have, a special set of skills that make me a little bit unique at it. But anyone can argue logic as a human rights defender.
Well, when I think about skills in you, I think about brandy.
Well, yeah, that's true.
And your
I'm
ability
starting a
with it.
distillery, and it's an interesting thing where we're creating a uniquely Canadian ultra premium brandy that I'll be releasing at Christmas this year.
It's good. It's very good. You're very good at that. But of course, I want you to completely stay focused with the human rights part. But yeah, Randy, good heavens, I tried it and it was absolutely wow. Good job on that one. Anything you want to touch on before we end our first episode of season 2? Let's put a little yay!
Hey, congratulations on restarting, and I hope you get a lot of support, Paul. I hope people forward this, share this, and make sure this message goes forward so that this story that I have can change the world.
Actually, when it comes to your story, when something new happens or you have new revelations or anything like that, let me know so we can have a second episode just to refresh one's memories and to keep people updated, because we are in a dire situation. Season 2 is could be the last season. Absolutely, I'm aware of that. You understand the dangers as well as I do. I didn't expect to make it this far because the more what's going on, the a little bit scarier that it gets, and then it becomes about your faith and your willingness to die for your fellow man, your willingness to.
Cheryl Rowe, it'll be available at Christmas. Sorry, Paul.
Oh yeah, Can I have some of that brandy? You won't like it. You won't like it. You won't like it.
You're trying to keep it. Paul knows that I've only made a small amount, but it'll run out very quickly, and it's ultra premium, so the price is going to be a higher price point than you're used to paying for. But it's one of those special things.
Discount?
You buy once a year.
Do I get a truth table discount?
Maybe I'll bring some at some point if I come back for another. Maybe I'll come back when we launch the product, so your watchers can really become aware that it's available and how to buy it. So in any event, Paul, I think that's probably everything. It was really a pleasure to have a chance to address your audience, and hopefully people forward it and share it. And if people are aware of other podcasters that they think should interview me, please feel free.
Yeah, thank you for coming, and thank you all for This is going to be archived on Patreon. I'm going to put it, on my board and archive it because, all information is important. A lot of people just aren't aware that they don't have time to do all the research required, and they haven't read these bills and they haven't read these treaties, so they're really coming in a blind approach. But it's important that you have to understand we're coming from a place of love. We're not coming from a place of war, and we're trying to beat them. We're just trying to show you what's before us, what we're dealing with, care, and that we're looking for the truth together. So, this is a great way to start. See, thank you, Jeff, for coming. I appreciate your knowledge and your efforts, and I look forward to seeing you again. I look forward to having you on another show, and hope we can update the situation. So thank you, Jeff.
Maybe you could just do one favor for me, Paul, and that's to leave this out by playing a musical instrument or singing a song. Do you think you could do that? Would you be ready to do it?
I don't know. It's gonna work. Hold on a second.
And the reason I asked Paul to do this is because Paul is an incredible musician. He's got a ton of talents, and it's always a pleasure to have him play. Paul, I was thinking about that song that you just recently wrote and co-produced with that black lady from Chicago.
She's actually white, but yes, Christina
Aguilera.
Christina Aguilera, yeah. She, I thought was the Christina Aguilera, but she married a man named Aguilera. I wouldn't know that one. Can you hear my guitar?
Oh, it's pretty quiet. It's too quiet. Can't hear it. Oh, and you've got music going on in the background
too. It's loud here, so I don't. My voice might be quiet, but yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Off with the song. No effects on my voice, so. Okay, let's see. Sunset.
Yeah, we can't hear the guitar.
Stars so bright, the ocean still, with whispering tide. Time moves slowly. Moon so clear. Let your children do what securing their
Hey, Paul.
Bye.
That was a pleasure for me, but I think, the experimental use of this platform, there's probably some things that might need to change about the sound production there in the future. But
music, yeah, I have to go through my another system to make the music work. Otherwise, like if I play piano, it's just distorted noise. It doesn't sound good at
yeah,
all, which is really sad. It should be able to, sound as our voices right now, but it doesn't.
just
So was the music dead? Because I had it plugged
from
right
a
in the.
from a debrief perspective, there's been clicking while you've been speaking on your microphone. So you might be too
On the
close.
microphone?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing, like when you were playing, the loudness control or whatever was kicking in and out. So sometimes we could hear the guitar, sometimes we couldn't. Sometimes we could hear your voice, sometimes we couldn't. So there's probably a bunch of gadgetry that you need to configure, where it's doing the balancing and all that sort of thing. But I just thought I would share that with you so that you can.
Yeah, I haven't been happy with recording before, but I do need to. T-shirts are going to help upgrade.
You're
I'm
still too
getting.
close to
I
the mic.
already
You're getting
ordered.
the clicking.
I already ordered a new cord, the XLR cord for the microphone, so it's a better quality. So little by little, it's going to be getting better in season 2.
Yeah.
Musically too, I do want to get that down because I might have to go through the Element. What is it called again? I'm using Cubase Elements, and that system. If I go through that system, it sounds perfect. It sounds great.
Well, considering you just got this system today, I think you did a fantastic job with it, and it was really good. So just got to keep playing with it, man. It's going to be great. So congratulations on a really good show. Sorry I talked so much, but it had a lot to say, obviously.
No, that's okay. No, thank you, and I wish you a good night, and I hope the right people see this podcast, opening C2, and learn something from it and share it with others because it's really need to unify. And the message is very important. If people are sleepwalking through life, they're not good at these laws and treaties. And Truth Table is really about getting the truth out and preparing for what we're really in. We're in a frying pan. We don't want to go from the pot to the pan. We want to have remedy and a better future for Canadian people. So thank you all for joining us. I'm Paul Everton, the host here at the Truth Table. We'll see you again on episode 2.
Good night from Jeff Loucks.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.